Hello, welcome to this episode of Deconstructing Distortions. My name is Allie with A. Marie Speaks, and this series here is dedicated to those of us who are sort of the eternal student, I like to call it, on this continual path of awakening, learning new things, discovery, exploration, seeking of truth. I plan to be discussing terms and phrases here in this series, one at a time in these kind of quick, under 20-minute videos, to just talk about my own points of distortion that I would like to kind of iron out within certain terms. Like I said, this is kind of a secondary step up series from my initial similar look at terms and phrases, which I called Comprehending Consciousness. That is a wonderful series. It's available over on my original YouTube channel, which I'm locked out of, and maybe get onto some other time. But for now, using backup, obviously. But originally, that was 2 years ago, I think I had done the series. There's maybe 40 videos, 40-something terms and phrases geared towards people who are newly waking up. And I made this one to be, like I said, the step up. You know, for those of us who've already done kind of that tip of the iceberg tour, like I talk about over there, putting on your scuba gear, doing some diving for yourself, learning what that's all about. This is kind of for those of us who've, been diving for a while, There's things you find. There's commonalities. There's an interesting currents of truth to be had and different avenues out there in the world. And so I'd like to really talk about some of those without getting too far off into, explaining what I'm doing. If you want to watch the other ones, like I said, or maybe I didn't say this already. This is episode number 5. Sorry, I didn't say that. This is episode number 5. I'm going to be talking about the term man here, but I have done 4 others already. They are all up on my backup channel, I believe. The first one actually might be over on Original A. Marie Speaks, but the link will be below. But further on, they'll all be on this A. Marie Speaks 2 channel here. So thank you for finding it. Thank you for joining me here if you are. Welcome, and let's get into man. The term. I had started recording this already for full transparency, and I got off on a total tangent for almost 10 minutes talking about the Rockefeller-funded feminist movements and the trick and trap of all of it, and sort of how I kind of wasn't really drawn into that in my own life, but sort of was. But I don't want to get into that. I might do like a part A deep dive that sometimes I get into, side backstories with like personal experiences on the terms. I did that in Comprehending Consciousness a few episodes. I brought in like episode 5A and my personal take on it. So perhaps I will do that along the lines of that. But for saving for time and just to get to the point and to talk in a more positive alignment about the actual distortions and everything, I'd like to just sort of put on the marking right here at the start that I get it, the word man, the original, the sort of jump to trigger response in the last sort of 10-15 years and up till right now, it's sort of starting to fade away. People are starting to realize that it was a big trap. But the immediate kind of trigger response was that feminist thing of how dare you say man, and what about women, and let's get rid of that term, and we have to have an inclusionary term that lets everybody know that they're all included, not just men or people who identify as male energy. We all have within us both male and female energy that needs and requires balancing. We are man, as in the creation of mankind, creation of God, in my opinion, but feel free to interpret it in your own ways, of course. This is what Deconstructing Distortion is offered for adept students for, because we're not triggered by different terms and looking at things from different angles, or we work to not be triggered as much, to comb out our own triggerings, to find out why they are there, and to be able to look at things more comfortably, to find the harmonious solution and the real truth in between it, right? That middle ground. And the finding some, I don't vibe with having the whole feminist thing and having to recorrect language and add in women and stuff. What I would love to bring back to and hearken into true truth about is grammatical generality, laws of grammar, other languages other than English, and remembering and teaching and honoring divine masculine and feminine, and having and remembering that subjects within grammatical language and law and setup, they have an identification of masculine or feminine, and the articles and things represent, and the word changes, and depending on whether it's a masculine or feminine representation. It has nothing really to do with sexuality or sex or females and males and or of this hierarchy sort of thing that the matrix overlay has really implanted upon us and on our language, to think that every time we say these words it represents their hierarchy, their control structures, that we are speaking about them. Even that we have to remember in a positive alignments, and to be organically positively aligned, to seek open free service and to offer service freely in conjunction with that, this free-flowing lemniscatic cycle, figure eight sort of thing, a toroidal that we should be looking to embody as alchemists. It functions freely. We just do what we want. We offer freely. We don't have to go along with what they're trying to put on us. Just because they claim that their structure they built is original architecture, it doesn't make it true unless we align with it. And if we don't, then we don't have to give them any of our lighter energy. We do our own things. We don't have to bow down to their language or their meanings and definitions, and be triggered by their things just because they say over there that those things are triggering in this way. Sorry, I don't believe that. I don't find a truth in that. What I find a truth in, like I said before, is the strengthening of bringing back general terms and bringing back the true truth of things. And in fact, owning and knowing that it is organic truth that there is masculine and feminine give and take in all of the different growths of life and of cycles. And humans, mankind is no different in that way than animals and plants. And when we use the word man, or when I'm using the word man, or when I read the word man, or I see others using it, I remember that. And the reason that I bring this up mainly, and have been combing through that word, I already sort of shared on my channel, and I used as sort of on my podcasts discussing distortions, the Walter Russell prayer, and he is from a long time ago, when we start to read history, the early 1900s, 1800s, and even in the Bible, I'm saying my other series with the Not Your Average Bible Study, that's even further and further back. That's kind of brought up other things about, context, and about generalities, and about speaking in plurals, and about translations from other languages, and how words and terms, things like men, man, are translated, and that perhaps its initial implication was not just for men, you know. If we can learn to break away from jamming everything so tightly into this negative division between men and women, I think we could really learn to serve each other better. Dare I say that? This is the thing with growing as a being, as a soul, as evolving, as gaining wisdom, as growing as a person. Even if you're not seeing it as this sort of whole spiritual soul path ascension, if you're just seeing gaining in maturity, wisdom, and knowledge here as a person and as part of mankind, it's beneficial to learn to look at the term man and woman and what it is to be masculine and feminine in less strict and cookie cutter ways. But when we do that, herein lies the rub. Herein comes the chances for manipulation, the chance for greater distortions. We have to ask ourselves, is it beneficial? Is it worth it to bend the truth, to bend the meaning, to turn the terminology in this direction, in this angle, for so long, or not? And once we realize, maybe it's not that great and beneficial, to start really separating out. So, with such division, these terms. Because when we do that, we leave ourselves open, and it creates these pockets in society of these labels and borders and boundaries that become non-porous. They become barricaded, and they become checkpoints. And that is not correct, because they should be porous and open, and there should be any free-flowing chances to move in and out of them. But for some, for many reasons, they become more controlled with these strict restrictions placed upon them. And so, kicking around ground between the word man and woman and what it is and what it means. It's very, very helpful, of course, to know that there's great differences. However, you have to remember that just like the coin has a heads and tails side, and there's great differences between their sides and the representations of what they are, the pictures on them, and you could play flips the heads or tails game and choose sides, and if one wins, the other is. There's only one side to choose, obviously. One side is this side because it represents, the back side of the coin. This is the front, and it has the head because it represents the front, and it's to be seen for whatever. There's so many different things that you could talk about. And yet, a coin is a coin. The coin is the whole heads and tails around the edges, all of it in combination, and it's used as currency in a back and forth transaction. The coin has its wholeness representation. So man and woman, are the head and the tails of the coin. But we have to remember we are a unifying coin, piece. We are coin. And in that coin in itself does have a great purpose, and we were designed by God to be, not as a coin as currency to be shared, but of course as some sort of purpose, a whole purpose itself. And yes, we have heads and tails versions, and those both have great definition and purpose to be looked at and to be observed and used on each side. But we should remember that the the differences are also strengthening points. We get so caught up on sticking on either side and jumping from side to side and playing heads or tail games that we've totally lost sight of what it means for the whole coin. And in fact, now it's used as really divisional, aggressive, oppositional points of war and of, battle and fighting. And it's time to bring it back into the unifying pieces. And with that comes things like recognizing and remembering grammatical generality. It's not meant to offend anybody. It's meant to make so that we can have organization and have sense, and to be able to speak and to be able to know and honor these the give and take, the masculine, the feminine, the in, the out, the yin, the yang, the light, the dark, the hard, the soft. The oppositional at play that language is created to talk about. These are organic truths at play here, cyclitic things that we've created language to discuss. So every time that I'm sort of into these old-timey language things, or reading the Bible, or reading these things that so many people have really took and plastered up and said, see here, this is for men only. This kicked out women, categorically in history, women were shunned for X, Y, and Z reasons because, the text was written in man, and God chose to speak through men mostly, or something, who knows. And who knows even about what they've chosen to put into the Bible about Adam being first and creating Eve out of him, and all of these other things. And also to say that what about the truth of that women give birth? There's great showcasing that both are divinely needed. So why do we have to be picky choosy about it? Why can't we give the term, why can't we just compromise and all come to ground to say that those terms are for everyone, and that it's to create an ease of unifying us together, not to speak to one or the other. So yes, I'm not one of those who needs to be editing language and changing words to include women. I don't think it needs to be Superman, Superwoman. Sometimes there was this whole kind of weird phase, and I hear it in some people that I talk to sometimes, where and I wish I could think of off the top of my head here now a couple of great ones. I'll be like, after I do this video, I'll be like, dude, why didn't you write them down? You should have been more prepared. But my camera works so very rarely and on time and at this great intersection to where I have time to do videos that I have to just go with it when it's working. But when I hear people doing these things, or, oh, there should be more women represented in this field, and there needs to be more men represented in this field, and, oh, homemakers are not just women, and all this kind of stuff. It's like, okay, just like we don't need to jam and there should be porous boundaries between certain things, I do understand that life is unique developments, that we are individual, diverse, developing, fractal source pieces of God. Nobody needs to be in any box. We need to be fully embodying whatever unique purposes that we feel that we're made for. But also in that comes truth of template, truth of generality, truth of design and intention. And there is a design and intention within masculine, feminine energy, within male and female, and within the sort of yin yang, that's offered there. I am gonna have to leave it there. It's almost 20. It is 20 minutes, and I've got stuff to do. So I might do a deep dive on this to sort of talk a little bit further into that. But I want to just, I wanted to just sort of break away from the triggered roles and to understand that there is a happy medium between the two, but there's also great purpose in having the two. We can only create happy medium by having the two. Right? So just to put that out there and to get people to sort of think on it, ruminate in it in their own ways, as I have been over the years for myself. So thank you so much for joining me, and I hope I'll see you next time.